when I said, well, I got to give up my dream in order to make a living. Because like we said, as a musician, we were trying and we were out there hustling.
But I got to that point where it was like, after like 12 to 18 months of really hard work, I'm in a completely different situation than I was when I started this. And that feeling was amazing. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the AbadAss Life podcast. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Andrew Abad. I'm your host. And this channel is all about bringing you people who are experts or are becoming experts in their own fields to give you the tricks, tips, and hacks that you need to start crafting your own badass life, whatever that looks like to you. And today we have a very interesting episode because we have someone who's not only a great entrepreneur, he's a great family man, a great man of God, and he has many, many other aspects that we're going to uncover today. But thank you so much for being here, Nick.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. We're going to have some fun.
Of course, man. So, we don't know each other for very, very long, but I feel like the moment we met, there was like so many things that clicked, right? And I think like your background is very interesting. I think like what you're doing, it's, super helpful and impactful for business owners, which is, like something that we do here as well. And I wanted you just for the audience to, get to know you a little bit more. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? Where you come from? What's your background? All that good stuff.
Sure. I feel like a lot of people have said that to me in the idea of like, I haven't known you for very long, but I feel like I've known you for a long time. And I'm like, I have kind of an abrupt vulnerability. I have a tendency to go like just live really wide open in a way that kind of says, look, I'll show you my scars. I'll talk about my brokenness. And I'm really not afraid of that. And I feel like that's probably a part of the reason that a lot of people go, I feel like we've known each other a long time. It's like, yeah, because I'm totally okay with showing you behind the curtain. And I feel like that has been probably the most important aspect of networking and building relationships for me and being able to build my own company. But yeah, so thank you for saying that. That encourages me a lot.
No, of course. I think like, that's exactly what you just said now is what makes people to draw to, because a lot of people are going to relate to, the woundedness, the brokenness. All of us have like our own battles. We're all going through life, and we're all in a very similar journey. And so being open and honest and being vulnerable and making sure that the people see you not as the one person that has none of the issues or none of the things going on, right? But like just being transparent and letting people relate to you, that is the best way to attract the right people that you want in your life, in your circle, right?
And it keeps the wrong people away from you. You know what I mean? It's like most people who don't want to live at that level of vulnerability or find that weird or repulsive, they don't tend to gravitate toward me, which is good. It means I'm doing my job. You know what I mean? It's like, and everybody's really afraid, well, what if my personality or my way repels certain people? That's kind of the goal. Like the goal is that the people who should not be in your circle are not in your circle. And those who are find you and they're drawn to you. You know what I mean? It's like somebody said recently, and I found this super interesting, just the concept that we right now in our world are in a trust recession. We're at a place where everybody looks so pretty online and everybody can put together wonderful podcasts, with the perfect angles and everything and all that stuff. And it's awesome until it starts to feel super manufactured. You know what I mean? And it kind of got us here. The last 10 years got us here, right? The Joe Rogans and all the different awesome podcasts that kept it real and kept really talking about some really cool stuff. Like, that's great. And now with everybody trying to do the same thing, it doesn't mean that there isn't space for everybody to share their value and their story, but it does mean if you're not being real with people, if you're not being honest, if you're not sharing your authentic wisdom, if you're not being what I like to call authentically, I can't even say authentically. I call it authentic audacity. It's a willingness to be very authentic, even if that means boldness to a point where people are made a little uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Because I love the idea that my audacity, my willingness to say the thing or ask the question or push the envelope will make people go, like make them ask that question of like, why does that make me uncomfortable?
Right.
I feel like those are the growth conversations to be had. But you kind of asked me a very targeted question, and then I went off on a tangent. So forgive me.
I feel like we're going to do that a lot in the course of this podcast. So
I feel like that's the goal,
don't worry about it.
is just a little bit of wandering authenticity. But yeah, I guess in terms of my story, there's so many silly jokes that I make. When people ask me that question, I like to say I was born young. That was for that one person out there who's going to find that funny. But for the last 15 years, I've been specializing in sales and operations, having kind of a background in network marketing, in entrepreneurship, as a professional musician before that. So I went to college for theater and wanted to be an actor. That's what I wanted to do. Graduated, got my bachelor's in 3 years because I'm a psychopath and wanted to take 22 and 25 credits to just get it done and get out. Because I just wanted to move, I have this crazy belief that ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Success loves speed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's one of those great things where everyone likes to play this game where they go, well, I just want to make sure I have it right and then I'll move. And I'm like, you're not going to get it right unless you're moving. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like this whole idea of, I'm just going to make sure that I'm prepared and aimed. Well, fire some shots, figure out how that goes. And then from there, you're going to be able to get much more clear on what you actually need to do to get the result that you want. So I love that idea of ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Obviously, knowledge on fire is better than both of those things. But, from the beginning of starting my own private business consulting practice, it was all ignorance on fire. It was just, 15 years worth of sales and operations experience. I've helped small companies to scale, to grow, to develop and grow from local brands into national brands, and consulted with hundreds of different companies and been in sales for large tech companies and been on the insides of those kind of sales pits. And when you have all these mixed different types of experiences, the tendency is to just go find the next job that will pay you the most for those skills. Well, I was raised by entrepreneurs, and my brain doesn't really work that way. It works in a way that goes, I want to start to develop the life, the badass life. You know what I mean? I want to start to develop the life that actually gives me the time to spend with my wife, Nicole, and my two beautiful daughters. And at the same time, still allows me that opportunity to bring value to people in a way that hits what hurts. You know what I mean? In a way that really goes right to the place of where they're hurting and goes, if you let me in there, we're gonna be able to fix this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just being very general at this point. But so started out in my early 20s, graduated college with a theater degree and was auditioning, had two agents that were sending me out, one for film and television and one for theater, Broadway, off-Broadway kind of stuff. Had a couple of featured spots in little blockbuster movies and that kind of stuff. Very, very small kind of things where you'd have to watch it with me and I'll go, that's me, But as that was happening, my younger brother, he was writing music and he has a gift for songwriting. And he said to me, I want to record this album and I want to, audition at Berklee College of Music. And I said, that's awesome. What can I do? Because I was also a drummer. And he said, yeah, come sing with me on the thing, come play drum. So we record the album. He does that. He goes and auditions at Berklee College of Music and they want to accept him and they basically make him the offer. But at the same time, the guy who produced the album basically said to us, look, you guys should tour. Like you should do this. You should make your living playing music. I'll back you. I'll point you in the right direction, teach you how to do that. And when you're 20 years old, and he was, I think, 17 or 18 years old at the time, that just sounds like the goal, right? And you're just like, absolutely, that's what I want to do. And even Berklee basically looked my brother dead in the face and was like, we'd love to take your tuition money, but if you have offers from a producer to go tour, you should go do that. Yeah. Like, that's what we're going to teach you to do. And we were like, okay. And we just, ignorance on fire, man. We just ran with it. We wanted to stay independent. Over the course of the next 3 years, we did get offers from Warner Brothers and Universal and, had some interest from other major labels. But the deals were favorable for the label, not for us.
As they normally would be.
As they normally would be.
One quick question that I had is like, was the plan always theater, or did you move into that as, you know, you got closer to college? And when because this remind me of like, I literally just saw a couple of days ago, there was like this small clip of Matthew McConaughey in which he talks about, you know, picking up the phone one day and calling his dad and saying like, hey, Pops, I don't want to go to law school anymore. I want to go film school, right? And he was all nervous because, you know, like the parent, what is my dad going to say and all the stuff. And he says how his dad just took a pause and said, is that really what you want to do? He said, yes, sir. And then basically just took another long pause and said, well, don't half-ass it, big boy. Go ahead and own it. Like, do it, you know? And that's like all that he needed, like all the validation he needed to say, okay, I'm doing this. And so like, I just had like a quick thought. It's like, is that what you always wanted to do? Or is that, how did your parents take it? Or your folks say about it?
Yeah, well, my folks, like I said, they were entrepreneurs. You know, they retired in their early 20s because of a network marketing concept, you know, that they built and did an amazing job with that. And that was a big part of what kind of created my foundation entrepreneurially and in terms of sales. And but going back to theater, it actually is a funny story that I have not told in a long time. And since you said it, it kind of reminded me. When I was in 6th grade, my older brother was the lead in the school play, and that would put him in 8th grade. And so I just thought, what a crazy thing. Like, you know, because he's sitting every day at home studying lines, you know, just reading through this script, and he's like half the script, you know, and it's a full play. And I was just amazed. I was like, you know, I was helping him with his lines and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to be like, you know, this is crazy. You're going to stand up in front of people and you're going to do this and you're going to do all that. Like, that seems wild. And they only got one performance, but the performance came. And I remember, because now I know the script inside and out, right? Because I've helped him study it. And I knew where the jokes were supposed to be, where the laugh was supposed to be. It was a comedy, right? And there was one scene where my brother's character and another character were having a conversation that they, you know, I don't know, there was some kind of tension going on. I'm sure it's a play. And the doorbell was supposed to ring, and they were supposed to stammer around the room, like straightening something up, you know, or whatever, or kind of like hiding something. And then the person was going to walk in. So now I know this is coming. So they're talking about it. They're telling the lines. All of a sudden the doorbell rings. My brother pops up. He goes to run around and do what he's supposed to do, which is like to hide something. In the process, he trips and he falls flat on his face in the middle of the stage. And that's not supposed to happen, right? And so in my little 6th grade mind, I was like, like what's going to happen? And all of a sudden, in perfect timing, he pops up to his knees and looks at the person who just came in the room, and they're looking at him like, why are you on the floor? Like, what happened? And he looks up and and this is not in the script, and he looks up and he goes, I bet you were expecting a much taller man.
Genius.
And when I tell you that however many parents and people were in the room, that joke killed. Yeah. Like, it was so good because everyone in the room went pin quiet when he fell. Like, oh my God, clearly that was not supposed to happen. And he popped up and he looks and he goes, I bet you were expecting a much taller man. And the room erupted. And everything in my little heart just went, I want to do that.
Yep.
What was that? That was so cool. Like, the idea that everything about that moment was organic. You know what I mean? It was real. And so it led me to wanting to do theater. And I wound up being in the next number of plays in 7th grade and 8th grade and then all through high school and all that stuff. And it turned into a thing. And apparently I have an ability for it. But it wasn't until recently that I even started to consider the question of, why was I pursuing that? You know what I mean? Like, was I pursuing it because I have a gift for it? Was I pursuing it because I really love it? Or was there something deeper that I was trying to accomplish? I feel like that moment when he tripped and he dropped that little improv line, it was like it encouraged me so much to think there is a way that you can bring joy, reality, authenticity to people at scale. And that's so, so cool. And I just fell in love with theater at that moment. But then at the same time, when I said, well, I got to give up my dream in order to make a living, because like we said, as a musician, we were trying and we were out there hustling and doing our thing. And before we knew it, we were, traveling across the country and down the East Coast. And, we won a national battle of the bands that led us to representing the U.S. in Germany against
awesome.
It was wild. It was this whole cool thing. And we did the whole thing. We did the whole independent musician thing. It was just, we wound up super broke, and we wound up going, well, we love to do this, and a lot of people, the kind of wisdom of the day would say, do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And it's like, no, do what you love and you'll work for free every day. You know what I mean? Because you'll convince yourself that you love it. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do what they love to do or they shouldn't have passions, but pursue, especially before you're ready to do that, to pursue your passion for your income can be a really easy way to begin resenting your passion.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Which is really, really sad and it's really frustrating. So it's almost like all of this last 15, 20 years of my life has led me to a place of going, why was I doing all those things? You know what I mean? What was the most important? And more importantly, what worked? What actually connected with people and made them go, that improved my life. That made my business better. That made,
right.
That helped me move the needle forward. And just doing that kind of reflection, especially over this really targeted last 15 years of sales and operations, was to say, when I get in a room with small business owners, the temperature changes. There is something about having an authentic person in the room who can encourage that person, who can pull out of them where their real value is and help them to see it. That just became very evident to me over the course of the last couple of years, where I had a number of people say to me, I want to work with you. And I was almost like, doing what? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have a business. I didn't incorporate any of those kind of things. They were just like, when you're in the room, my business makes sense. And I'm like, okay, what do we do with that? Well, let's start there. Let's just get in a room and let's talk about your business. And then before you knew it, it turned into what is now New Light Consultants, which is my private business consulting practice. But it's the ability to work with business owners who are maybe successful on paper, but overwhelmed in reality. You know what I mean? The people who are so busy working in their business that they haven't worked on it, and the ones who
right.
they want to scale up, but they're already burning out. You know what I mean? It's like, and I don't mean to be cutesy with those phrases, but just like the idea that you can come into a room with a person who has built a business, but really what they've done is they've gotten themselves locked into a job, and that person needs systems, and they need not just software, right? And there's great software out there, but it's more than that. It's an idea. It's a matter of clarifying exactly where their business is going, and honing what's most profitable. Figuring out how to manage and lead their people, figuring out how to systematize things like marketing and sales, and cash flow, right? How many people are hurting, just having a difficult time managing all those things. So basically, once I realized that's what I wanted to do, was I wanted to be in the room with small business owners while they were beating their head against the wall, and I wanted to just grab them by the shoulders and sit them down and go, we're going to fix this.
Here's the clarity that you need.
Yeah.
See, that's one of the things that I think makes me relate with you so much, because I have a very similar story. I mean, we've discussed this over and over, and when I realized what my purpose was, or at least what I very strongly feel my purpose is when I was able to kind of cross over that point from struggling with my business, or being optimistic about it and wanting to do all the right things, putting in all the work, hustling really hard, being on the grind, doing all the stuff that you as a new business owner want to do, because you want to put in the work, you want to work really hard. But a lot of the times it's not about working just harder, right? It's about figuring it out. What's the biggest leverage that you can find for your business? What's going to be the biggest catalyst? And just focusing on that. If you have the ability to just go ahead and designate or or delegate things to other people in your team. If you have a team, great. If you don't, then you still, the one thing that I see and that I feel like they're cliches and they're very true, but a lot of the time people just take it out of context in social media, and then all this like world of like flawless entrepreneurs that we see online is, the whole like, oh, stop trading your time for money. That is great and dandy, but you all start at a certain, stage. And so like, at this stage, you have to trade your time for money. Like that, you have two resources: time and money. And a lot of the times at the very beginning, you have a lot more time than you do money.
Sure.
And so you have to spend that resource into building your business, setting out the foundations, doing the right things, so that later at a different stage, you are able to pull back, have a strong foundation that your teams are going to learn, and they're going to be able to drive the business forward without you necessarily having to be there. And the one thing that I see a lot of the times is we work with a lot of business owners. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they don't want to do the thing. It's just the purpose and the clarity is not there just yet. They want to do the thing. They don't know why they want to do the thing. And that's what I tell them all the time. It's like, look, like, it's great. Be brave. Be courageous. Like, take the hill. But you have to know what's your hill. Like, what is the thing that you want to do? And for me was getting that feeling, and just this morning we were discussing how, I hit like a very rocky point in my life where financials were brutally bad. Almost every aspect of my life wasn't, where I wanted it to be. It was like the furthest from like my ideal life or my own AbadAss life. And I make a conscious decision to be very intentional about start crafting it little by little. And at first, what that looked like was, financials. Because as much as we don't want to admit it, money is not everything, but it helps a lot. It gives you the freedom that you want to give to your family. It gives you the choices that, you want to have in life. And it gives you the ability to impact other people and, better some other people's lives. If you have employees, if, you build a big company.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was like kind of like the first step. And obviously, before that comes health. If you're not healthy, you can't fulfill your purpose, your vision. But I got to that point where it was like, after like 12 to 18 months of really hard work, I'm in a completely different situation than I was when I started this. And that feeling was amazing. I just felt sat one day at like my home office at the time, and I was like, it's like a relief, right? It's like, okay, now we have choices. Now we can do what we want. Now we can focus on helping other people. And that was a great feeling. And so whenever we started Media Minds, the mission of Media Minds was still help business owners confront and face those challenges of business ownership and entrepreneurship without having to do it alone. It's like, hey, you have someone in your corner that's going to help you go through those challenges so that hopefully you get to that point where you get to that side of relief and you're like, I maybe not, I haven't made it yet to everything that I want to achieve, but I'm at that one point that is the next stage on my journey where I have more choices, I have more freedom, I have the ability to impact other people's lives. And that's kind of like what brought us here, right? That's what made this podcast come about. So I think like we have that in common, and it's a huge part because it's part of our purpose, right? It's for me, it's like now I like, truly feel like my purpose is just to help people achieve what they want by helping them with their business, helping them take their business to the next level.
I find it super interesting, like the idea of I just want to help people, right? And I used to make fun. Like I used to joke about that because if you ask a nurse why she does what she does, she'll say, oh, I just want to help people. If you ask a police officer, why do you do what you do? And he'll be like, he or she will just be like, I want to help people. If you ask a construction worker, what I mean? No matter who you ask, the answer seems to come back, well, I just want to help people. And I used to joke about that. Like, And the cynical way that I used to look at it was kind of the idea of, well, not everybody's really, helping me. And then I started really understanding what every business in the world, which has supplied every job in the world, you know what I mean? The thing that makes our world go round is ingenuity, is this desire to make a profit, right? The idea that somebody will look at a problem and go, I think there's a solution for that. Like that's the baseline of all industry, right? Is the idea of, I see a problem and I think I have a solution, and I think it's so interesting to figure out how you help. You know what I mean? To figure out, and for like anybody watching this to realize that whatever it is that they are really good at doing, it helps somebody. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like the real answer is to figure out what you do that genuinely brings value, that really helps people, so that literally no matter what industry, what business you start, no matter what direction you go, you can look at yourself at the end of the day and you can go, I'm helping people. Like I'm genuinely helping people to make great decisions. You know what I mean? I'm genuinely helping people to improve areas of their life, their business, their family, their relationships, their health, their wealth, whatever it is. And there really is a sense of, if that's why you're doing what you do, then you can have peace about what you do. Then it's not work. You know what I mean? It's not just do what you love. It's do what works and love it. You know what I mean? It's not just do what you're passionate, do your passion and you'll live a wonderful life. It's figure out what works and figure out what gets the best results, helps the most people, brings the most value, and then get passionate about that.
See, the one thing that I would say is, like, I would argue that you can, and it is actually not, I would argue you're saying the same thing, but I would say that you can find the beauty in anything that you do,
of
right?
Course.
And it's like, no matter what you do, if you're a cleaning company, you can, find true fulfillment in seeing like, oh, these people have a clean space to work at because of us. Like we're making their spaces much better and they're happy to be there because, so whatever it is that you do, you can find the beauty in if you truly enjoy what you do. Now, I'm of the opinion that, in life, sometimes what you love might not be necessarily fully helpful to other people, might not necessarily bring a ton of value to other people, but you are the main character in your story, right?
Well.
And there are some things that you're going to have to make the exchange and be okay with. Mm-hmm. So if it's something where like you just want to live your life in a certain way that doesn't necessarily help a ton of people or bring value to a ton of people, that's totally fine. But you just have to be okay with the fact that you're making that trade-off. And if you go 10 years doing that and then regret it, that's the time that you're never going to get back. And so as long as you're, it's like kind of like the same thing on the Matthew McConaughey line is like, you sure that you want to do this?
Yeah.
Okay, then go for it. But, there's no, going back in time yet at least and being able to do it all over again. So just having that conviction that, okay, and that's the hardest part, right? Because like your ideas on life can change and that's okay. Like you can find a new hill. But my opinion is that if you're very intentional on finding what that purpose is, because for example, for somebody that has like shiny object syndrome, like I do, I think most entrepreneurs do, and for someone that hasn't honed in yet that impulsive factor in my personality, I get excited about a lot of things, and just having that ability to just slow down and say like, okay, I may be excited about this right now, but am I going to be excited about it a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now? And if the answer is no, then you can go back and try to really figure it out. I think like half the battle is just figuring it out what your actual purpose is. What are the things that make you tick? What are the things that you look forward to, when you wake up? And when you do that, it doesn't have to be the best paying job. It doesn't have to be a business. It doesn't have to be anything along those lines. It just has to be something that makes you tick, that you truly say like, okay, this is why I'm waking up for.
Right.
Do you agree?
I think that's the goal. I think the goal is to find something that genuinely makes you come alive and to be able to make your income and build your lifestyle on that. I think that's absolutely the goal. But I don't think that comes at a cheap price.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't think, well, not just the fact that it's going to take quite an exchange of your energy, of your discipline, of your all those things to be able to make a living doing something like that. But also in the idea that most people, at least I feel, most people have not expressed the humility and the willingness to go through something that they hate to do, but that gets great results and helps them identify certain things. That's going to sound weird, right? The idea of like, I don't want to do something that I hate. Right, but at the same time, you really need to have the willingness to go through what sucks.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You know, everybody likes to say to me, we were talking about this before, everyone likes to say to me, when it comes to hosting things or speaking on a stage or something like that, or anyway, a lot. It's funny that I would, of course, stammer at that point, but everyone likes to look to what I do on a stage, what I do on a microphone, what I do speaking publicly, any of those kind of things, and say, "Oh, you're such a natural." And it's like, well, thank you. I've worked very, very hard to become a natural, which would be a really great indicator that that's not natural, right? There's nothing natural about it. It is worked for. It is created. It is dealing with a lot of discomfort. It is reading a lot of Shakespeare that you don't want to read and study and master and know. And it is being willing to stand up on stage in front of hundreds of people and say something that should get a laugh and listen to crickets. You know what I mean? It's that moment that would kill so many people's drive and energy. And you have two choices. You can either take that and go, well, I'm never going to do that again, and completely leave on the table the long-term lesson and the value that there was in it. Or you can go, why didn't that work? And fix it.
Yep.
Maybe it was the audience you were in front of. Maybe it was the way you said it. Maybe it was something, and I'm just talking about my particular, situation in terms of learning to be good at talking and dealing in front of people, being in sales, any of those things. But it applies to everything. It applies to literally everything in your life. Being a husband, come on, somebody, you know what I mean? It's like the idea of being a husband, as like a lot of people would say, and I've heard a lot of wise people say, marriage is not intended to make you happy, it's intended to make you holy, right? It's a purifying process. It's a way, of being able to bring the best out of one another. But that hurts a lot of times. A lot of that really, really is hard. And I think it's why marriages fail so often. I think it's why businesses fail so often, is because when things get hard, people have a tendency to go, well, that sucks. And I don't want it to suck. So they wind up going, well, then I'm not going to keep going down that road. Okay, that's an option. You can do that, but I think you're missing it. I think you're missing the value, because the value is on the other side of the discomfort.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I've heard this, and it's so true. It goes directly to what you're speaking about. Is what you avoid controls you, right? And so
say that again.
It's everything that you avoid controls you. If you are scared of speaking in public and you decide that you will not speak in public because you're petrified, it makes you uncomfortable, and you don't want to be, ashamed or whatever it is that your fear is, it's controlling your ability to potentially give your message at scale, or potentially help some people that they needed to hear what you had to say. And so that's controlling that aspect, right? And whatever it is, it doesn't have to be just speaking. It could be anything. Like most of the breakthroughs are on the other side of the things that you don't want to do. And it's super interesting because I was actually listening to, there was a podcast with Dr. Andrew Huberman, and I'm like terrible with a lot of the stuff in the brain, the names. There's like the prefrontal cortex, and there's all this different, amygdala and all this stuff that are in charge of like a lot of your emotions and like your thinking brain and all that stuff. But he was specifically talking about this part of your brain that is super complicated, I don't remember. It has to do something with like a different area of like your prefrontal cortex. And they have run studies on people, not like lab rats or anything, on people that apparently this part expands whenever you do things that you don't like. And they have come to, the conclusion that, for example, if you don't like to do ice baths and then you go and do an ice bath,
Such a good example.
It expands so much. And here's the thing. The ice bath is really good for your body in general, despite whatever happens in your brain. Now, if you somehow start liking the ice baths, it doesn't have any effect on that area of the prefrontal cortex anymore.
Interesting.
Despite it's still good for your body,
Right.
It doesn't help that area grow. Which and they say that people that live the longest, athletes normally have that area like enlarged. Basically like all the good traits that you want to have as a human being, or all the good things that you want to happen in your life, all those people have that part of the brain enlarged. And so that means that you have to constantly keep putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. You have to constantly do things that you don't like that suck, in order to continue massaging that area of your brain that is going to give you all these extra benefits. And so that is like, from a scientific point of view, not just like, two guys here talking. So like, you got to do something that sucks.
It is a legit thing. It's seriously, neuroscience is crazy when you get into like the neuroplasticity of the brain. But it's like, and I'm like you, I'm not going to be able to cite all of the different medical journals and all that kind of different thing. But it is so amazing to me to look at our society that has designed itself around avoiding discomfort. Everything in our society is designed around avoiding discomfort. We want everything to be more convenient. We want everything to be quicker, more streamlined. We want, we want everything to be simpler and easier. And that's just good marketing. Like that's just, I can't even be mad about that. You know what I mean? Like that's just companies that have gone, here's a problem, I have a solution, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that it weakens us mentally and emotionally. And it puts us in a position where now
we worry about silly things that don't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Back in the day, if you were a caveman, you had to constantly be worried about you might get eaten.
Yep.
And so you had to worry about things that actually matter.
Yeah.
You had to stay alert. You had to like do all these things that you need for your survival. Nowadays, we don't have any real life-threatening problems, unless obviously you have some kind of disease or anything like that.
Yeah.
But in general, in your daily life, we have it so good that we're going to worrying too much about the wrong things, and that creates like this complete other rabbit hole of, I don't even think we're going to go down that road because, like.
Depends on what kind of podcast you want to have.
My wife and I always go into these debates because she claims that I don't believe in mental health, which is not true. If she's listening to this, not true at all. I think that nowadays, especially in the US, because of how easy we have it. We have it a lot easier than any other countries, There's a lot of people that claim that these are some of their issues because there is like no other like true worries that they have to like face. Right? Does that make sense? Like nowadays you see a lot of kids like have highest rate of depression, highest suicidal rate in the world, highest, all these different things.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I have all of the HDADs and all of this stuff. And it's like, no, your diet, you eat a ton of processed sugars, a ton of things that you cannot metabolize. And that's why you act a certain way. That's why you feel a certain way.
Yep.
And a lot more people are talking about that now. And again, like I'm going in this tangent, which is we're going to cut off really quick because like we could keep you here for like 2 hours. But I've become like so much more aware of this. And, even me that I'm aware of this, I still consume some of those things because it's so hard to completely avoid it, right? But because of that, there is like this large part of the population that I think they don't even know exactly what is it that they're suffering from. They're just going with what it's like becoming the new norm, I would say.
Let me ask you an interesting question, because there's an interesting story on the other side of this. But of the two, do you think that there would be a higher rate of suicide among people, among veterans who were active duty combat veterans or were not deployed? Which of those two do you think would have a higher rate of suicidality?
I would say active veterans.
Like combat veterans? Mm-hmm. And the data actually shows that it's the inverse.
The opposite.
It's those who were not combat veterans active duty when they were active duty that have an even higher rate of suicide.
That were never deployed, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I find that so incredibly interesting, because most people, when you associate a veteran with, having any desire to, right? And this is a terrible problem, right, in our world. And it's something that I intend to speak out, on quite a bit, especially because I've struggled with that myself, with, suicidal thoughts and ideations and all those kind of things. And I think way more people suffer from that than are willing to talk about it. But let's go back to like the almost uncomfortable vulnerability. Yeah. So for me, I find it super interesting that the people who have not deployed tend to, and I think it's at like a 16 or 17% rate higher, wind up attempting or
that's
actually
substantial.
That's a significant number. And I think it comes down to something that is what I think an absolutely huge issue in our culture specifically, is this tendency to invalidate one another. This tendency to look at what other people have experienced and go, well, you didn't go through that, so what are you complaining about? You know what I mean? You come on, you weren't even deployed. Like, imagine somebody actually saying that sentence to you, what that would do to your heart, what that would do to your emotions. And I don't have any data to back up. This is just my hypothesis. This is just my theory on why I think that may be, right? But the other side of it is, in my own story, I was raised in what most people would look at and go, an insanely charmed life, you know what I mean? With parents who were very successful and all those kind of things. And at the end of the day, I didn't like me. You know what I mean? I didn't like who I was. I had been successful and I don't know, call it successful, but I had been encouraged in a lot of different directions and to do, you're really good at this and, good at theater, you're good at music, you're, blah, blah, blah. But I hadn't accepted it for myself, and I hadn't figured out what value I bring and why I really mattered. And for the longest time, I didn't feel that I did, and that was a crazy thing to come face to face with. And again, the tendency is to look at it and go, come on, both of your parents were still together. They made a lot of money. You were raised in a huge, beautiful house in a beautiful part of the world. And, oh man, come on, what could you have to complain about? That very question kills people. The idea that you would take somebody's experiences and go, stop it.
Diminish them.
It's very diminishing. Yeah. It's very invalidating. And it's why I think so many in our culture suffer exactly the way that you just said, is because the idea and the tendency is to say, you have it so good in America, quit whining. Okay, there's validity to that point, right? Like that's a good point. But at the same time, every human being can only operate from the position that they are in. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to look at somebody who has it better for me financially and then assume they don't have any problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
They do, right? They do.
They're
right?
bigger.
And it's a different problem, but at the same time, it's like, that's the main thing that I think I've learned over the course of the last even year or two in moving down to Florida, because we're from New York originally. And we just wanted to get away from New York. It just was not feeling right. We realized we were lighting money on fire. We were, I said to my wife, I said, do you realize we've paid almost $50,000 last year in just property and income tax? Just those two things.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's wild, right? I'm just resisting saying a cuss word, but that and so many other factors that led us to wanting to live in Florida, which has been a great choice for us, and we've been loving it. But just that whole concept of, I think what our world needs is not to tell a person who's going through a tough time, just talk to somebody. I don't think there's a lot of value in that. It's really difficult to tell somebody who feels terrible. And the reason they feel terrible is probably because they feel like they don't have anybody that they could talk to or be honest with or vulnerable with without being judged, insulted, condescended, or diminished. And I think the real answer is for us all to wake up to the fact that the way we treat one another matters. You know what I mean? Like we need to stop looking at this whole interaction with one another like, well, if you're going through a tough time, I can't really be bothered with that. That's a lot.
See, this is where, I don't mean to interrupt you, cut you off. So like, have you seen like the new Karate Kid thing on Netflix?
No, I haven't watched it.
Okay. So there's this one, like basically
I know the concept of Karate Kid, yeah.
Right? And so like for me, there's this one particular scene I was watching with my wife, like this whenever it came out, where it made me go, And I think it's very important to kind of like be self-aware about like what is the tonality and what is the best people that you can serve and that you can help, right? Because for example, it's not that I want to diminish or that I want to invalidate certain people that are going through all this time. I very much understand, very much know that there is, everybody's at a different point in their journey, and there are certain things that potentially for me are not a big deal, but it could be a huge deal for them.
Yep.
And vice versa. There's probably certain things that are a huge deal for me that other people could be like, that doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But then, so the reason why I brought in Karate Kid was because, and before I go into that, I want to say this, my position in this, it's kind of like just trying to be that wake-up call that like, hey, you're going through a tough time.
Yeah.
Nobody is taking that away from you. You have the power to get out of that.
No doubt.
More than anybody else can tell you, more than anybody else can come and say, like, and pat you on the shoulder and be like, yes, you're going through a rough time. Stay there. I think it's just way more empowering to let them know it's like, hey, you have the power to change this. Because you have two options in life, no matter what. No matter what you've gone through, no matter what's happened to you, you can use it and be a victim, which has never helped anybody, or you can use it as fuel and say like, okay, I'm going to take this. It doesn't matter. I'm going to break through it, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do at my own pace to get on the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
And so like right before I'll finish with this is in the Karate Kid scene that I saw was the coaches actually were in this like tournament or whatnot, right? And everybody knows out there, like the Cobra Kai guy was like the more badass, like we're all like, like we go with aggression, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Miyagi side is like the more peaceful, more, empathetic per se, more that route. And so he was trying to coach the badass guy with all that, be calm, be all this stuff, and it wasn't working for him.
Sure.
When the moment he flipped the script and he was like, oh, this guy learns this way.
Yeah.
He was like, what are you doing? You're doing this, you're doing that. That like ignite that fire within him. So that's where I was trying to get at is like, I feel like obviously it's not gonna be for everybody, but sometimes you just gotta see if like the shaking works for the best benefit of that person. Does that make sense?
And I think it depends on where you're at in your life. I think I think that's the main difference. Like you talked about the idea of like, you can either look at yourself as a victim in the middle of tough circumstances, or you can use those tough circumstances as fuel. Yes, but fuel needs to be processed. You know what I mean? Like the idea that I think the differentiator kind of, or maybe the bridge between what you and I are saying is perhaps the idea that for most people, they have been taught by society, by their families, by their whatever, that certain emotions are undesired, certain emotions are inconvenient, are embarrassing, are whatever, right? In my family, it was very much like You can't do that right
do
now.
that,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? We don't do that. And I understand where a parent is coming from when they do that with a child. It's like, hey, we're in public or we're in church or we're whatever. I understand that makes people very uncomfortable, right? I have two small kids. One is 3.5, one is almost 2. So I get the idea of like being loud in public and like those kind of issues. But the problem is what you do in that moment is you're teaching that child that those emotions are not allowed.
Agreed.
And when you do that, you cause repression, you cause an inability to understand how to process one's own emotions. And now become an adult.
Yes.
Who's now literally sitting with every coping mechanism that you could have, that I've had all of them, smoking cigarettes and drinking constantly and smoking weed and doing all these kind of different things. And there's been so many different aspects of my life that were a matter of me trying to feel better, when the real answer was I needed to give myself permission to
cope
feel
with those emotions, yeah.
to allow those emotions to come out and to process them. That's very uncomfortable. And most people don't want to do that. And when you get into a conversation about whether it's counseling or therapy or whatever, most people will say, oh, I don't need a therapist. I already know what's wrong with me. To which my next question is, so why haven't you fixed it?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
And again, like this is coming from someone that is not against
Of course,
therapy.
of course.
I have spent probably what most average person spends on their mortgage in therapy, if not more. So I've done years, and I actually find it fascinating, right? Because like I think getting down to the root cause of your behavior or the things that you haven't fully processed. Everybody has trauma, whether you want to admit it or not.
Sure.
And it affects people in different ways. And there are like, it's not a one size fits all. So like that being said, like I'm all for all of that. I think it's just like business. The fact that a lot of us, myself included back in the day, thought that you can fix some of the things within you by yourself without being an expert at it. It's, I would say pretty arrogant, right?
Sure.
Like, it's like, me trying to launch a business with no previous like experience or things and saying, I don't need help from anyone else. Some of you guys out there do it, and then,
Well, it's kind of what led me into business consulting, is the idea that, the vast majority of small businesses are held together. I call it by sticky tape and bubble gum. You know what I mean? They had to make decisions in the moment to go, well, we need this problem solved, so we're just going to use this, and we're going to make that decision, and we're moving in certain directions. And it's like, then you turn around and you have a business that's doing $1 million a year. You have a business that's doing $700,000 a year, $5 million a year, $10 million a year. And you look back and you go, like, I can't sit in a room with you and ask you, what is the process to accomplish this task? And nobody at the company can walk me through it. Like, we just do it. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then you wonder why you're so stressed. Like, everyone wonders why they're so stressed at their company and their job and their whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, we need clarity. Like, there needs to be some kind of actual, you need to systematize things. You need to get yourself to a place where you are not the only piece that can make it work. You know what I mean? Like, I love to tell people one of the main problems that I solve is the founder's curse. Have you heard of the founder's curse?
No.
Great concept. But the idea of the founder's curse is the more valuable you are to your company, the less valuable your company is.
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if Media Minds can't operate without Andres, then Media Minds doesn't have a lot of value as a company.
You have no enterprise value whatsoever.
You have no enterprise value, exactly. There's no exit strategy. There's no selling the company. There's no scaling and exiting. There's none of that kind of stuff. So one of the men that I love to learn from, his name's Donald Miller. He's an author. He's created some great business systems, and he wrote the book Story Brand, and developed that concept. And the system that I base my consulting practice on, How to Grow Your Small Business, is a book and a system that he developed called Small Business Flight Plan, which is a brilliant concept.
You walk me through it, and it's like, let me see how I put this. Just to simplify it, I've sat with multiple consultants, whether it was for myself or for clients. I've been in a ton of meetings, tons of seminars. I think this is one of the simplest yet most effective way to approach it. It's like one of the most clear frameworks that offers the business owner a very easy way to kind of like say, oh, okay, okay, great, we're gonna get on it type thing, because you see a lot of consultants, and I think they don't spend enough time in simplifying it, just because the jargon and but it doesn't mean that a busy business owner wants to go ahead and learn what your job is. So I think simplifying it is like the best way to go about it, and I think like your framework or the framework that you use, it does a great job with that.
Yeah, and I think it's part of what led me, and what I was saying about Don Miller is my wife and I had been getting value out of his books for years before we knew that he had developed any of these systems or concepts. He's just written a lot of books, and Scary Close being one of them that it absolutely revolutionized our marriage. Hero on a Mission, amazing book that helped me kind of reframe the way that I look at myself. And then one of the concepts from the book How to Grow Your Small Business by Donald Miller is, he had this business that he was developing, and maybe he was doing a few $1 million a year. And he was talking to one of his mentors who ran a company that was doing billions of dollars a year and probably a number of different companies. And that mentor basically said to him, "What's your goal like for your company?" And Don said, "I think we have $100 million potential." And his mentor looked him dead in the face and said, "It's not going to happen." And it was like, what do you mean? Why? Like, why would you say that? And the answer is it's not going to happen until you, quote, and I love this concept, professionalize your operation. You have to have systems that are duplicatable, that remove thinking from it. You know what I mean? But that requires a lot of thinking on the front end. You know what I mean? You have to be willing to really nail down and iron out some of these things that are that feel existential about your business, your mission, where you're going, how you communicate your marketing, how you close a deal. You know what I mean? All of those different kind of things. And I think that's the reason that so many small businesses fail, is because they don't take the time to professionalize their operation and really go piece by piece to set themselves up for long-term success and for scalability, right? The idea that you could remove yourself from the business and your business can still not only operate, but flourish. You know what I mean? That's a pipe dream for most small business owners, but it's a genuine option for, I believe, just about every small business owner out there, right? And the concept, the whole system and the analogy that I've bought into based on How to Grow Your Small Business is that every business operates like an airplane, right? An airplane needs certain things in order to function and get to where it's looking to go, right? Every airplane needs to have the cockpit. You need to have a place where you can clarify where you're going, what's the destination, communicate clearly to those on the plane what's happening and the value that they serve toward getting to where you want to go. You need to have a right and a left engine, right? Those two things need to be working well and in unison. If you had a jet, a commercial jet that had one engine operating more powerfully than the other, you're spinning out. You know what I mean? Yep. So they need to work together. Those engines are attached to wings, which they need to be light enough to be able to maintain flight, but also big enough to get lift, right? All of that is attached to the body of the airplane, which is arguably the purpose of the airplane, right? The idea that that's transporting the people that are on it. Everybody who's on the plane knows, what their seat. They know what they're doing there. They feel confident in where they're going. And then you can have all of those pieces really beautifully designed. You can have a gorgeous jet that sits out there on the tarmac. If you don't have enough gas in it, it's never going anywhere. It can't move. And if you don't put enough in it, but you take off, you're going down. You know what I mean? So what is that? So the cockpit of the airplane is your leadership, right? It's your guiding principles as an organization. It's your mission statement, right? And I find that most mission statements are lacking something very crucial, a mission, right? Most mission statements are beautiful and poetic and interesting, but they're not a mission. They're not something that's going to drive the team forward. So your mission statement, right? Yeah. Your mission statement defines where we're going, right? The critical actions of your team. What is critical actions? It's like if this were Chick-fil-A, critical actions would be my pleasure. We know that every time someone says thank you, we say my pleasure. That's a critical action that sets us apart as an organization. Your key characteristics of the people that you're looking for and the team you want to build, and then your core values, right? That's what that looks like in the cockpit of your airplane, your leadership. And then the right engine is marketing. You need to be able to clarify your message, right? It's not just about marketing in some masterful, pretty online social media, right? When I need that, I call you, right? For those kind of things. The more important aspect is you need to be very capable of communicating clearly what you do, who you serve, and the problems you solve. You need to be able to communicate those things really effectively. But once you now bridge that gap from people hearing about a problem to admitting that they have the problem, now you're in sales. You know what I mean? Yep. Now you're in a conversation, which is the left engine, which is how do I now ask for the money? How do I now put myself in a position to be able to close the deal in a way that's not scummy and weird and makes me feel very uncomfortable? But those two things have to operate together, marketing and sales, right? Those are attached to the wings, which is the product or the service that you offer as a company. They need to be in demand and they need to be profitable, right? So in demand, strong like the wings. They need to be profitable, light. You know what I mean? There needs to be a system in place by which you analyze whether things are in demand and profitable, right? And a lot of people will look and they'll go, well, if I want to grow my business, I'll just offer a new service or design a new product or whatever. Cool. But you should have an auditing system in place to determine whether or not that's going to be a big old waste of time and money and not actually turn into something that becomes profitable and is actually in demand. And then all that's attached to the body of your airplane, which is it's where all your labor sits. That's your operations and your management. You need a system in place to be able to manage your people in a way that encourages them, that sets measurable goals for them, but also makes it abundantly clear where they're going. What's the goal here? Why are you on the plane? You know, and there needs to be a long-term game plan in place. Like most business owners that I've spoken with over the years, and I used to work for a company basically selling recruitment advertising, right? The biggest in the world. And people ask me all the time, was it a big company? And I say, indeed. Thanks. but all the time, my clients would say things to me like, nobody wants to work today. Nobody wants to work today. And I would say, no, it's not that no one wants to work today. It's that no one wants to work for you. For you. Yeah. You know, it's not that you're a bad person, right? It's not that you run a bad business. It's not that anything you're doing is bad. It's that you're not creating an environment and a culture that people feel confident in and that people can see themselves growing with and also see themselves not hating. You know what I mean? Most people put so much time into their consumer offer that they don't pay attention to their employer branding. You know what I mean? What is it like to work here? People need to pay attention to that kind of stuff. But that's the operations. That's the body of the airplane. But again, you can have all those pieces really beautifully designed and really pretty. If there's not enough gas, AKA cash flow, you're not going anywhere. Or if you're already in the air, you're going to run out and you're going to go down. And gas is cash flow. You know, it's that most people are just kind of operating like a revolving door. I mean, you know, obviously it's called currency because it needs to flow right in and out. But the idea of like when money comes in, it's already spoken for. Most people have not put their money to work for them, right? And they go, well, I can't. I love when I say that sentence to people and people go, no, I can't invest. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying put your money to work for you, like put it in the stock exchange, the stock market. I'm saying put your money to work for you, like every single dollar that comes in gets a name. You know what I mean? Every single dollar that comes in needs to be assigned to something. That is your money that needs to be assigned to something, to a purpose, right? And you need to be able to put a system in place that makes it so that you never run out of money, of course, but then also figures out what to do with everything beyond the baseline, you know, and where it's supposed to go. So I like to coach people through a concept that solidifies, you know, what some financial gurus and stuff would call that emergency fund, you know, and there's some great programs out there on that. But the idea of you should make sure that there's at least 6 months worth of no matter what happens, we're okay. Yeah. You know, that needs to be put in place. so many business owners would look at that and go, you're talking fantasy land for me, Nick, but it is not going to happen without intentionality. You need to have a plan in place that actually goes, what does this dollar get assigned to do? And then you need to put it in place, and you need to become disciplined in the idea that you follow through on the plan. So all of that, and a lot of times people will go to me, well, Nick, I don't have a 747. Like what you just described is a huge commercial jet, I have a Cessna, I have a little, or I have a hang glider, you know what I mean? Like so many people are like, well, I have an idea for a business, or I have something that I want to sell. And I go, oh, so you just have the wings, which is your product or your service, right? That's called a hang glider. The only way to get that moving is to run, and that's your marketing and your sales, is your ability to run, usually your mouth, you know what I mean? And to start to communicate those things. But my hope is to encourage, whether you have a hang glider or a 747, that the real answer to going from where you are in business right now to where you want to be in business is to stop trying to do everything on autopilot, to stop working so hard in your business that you never take the time to work on it. You know what I mean? Most people, they're just, well, because I need to keep this airplane in the air, I can't focus on fine tuning it so that it operates better. What? Yeah. You know what I mean? What a self-defeating process. You know what I mean? And I don't say that to shame anybody. I say that to say, it's time.
Let's wake up.
Wake up. Now's the time to really grab that, grab the lever, the joystick, the insert proper name for what that thing is called on an airplane, is to jump into the cockpit and just get very, very specific about your coordinates, about where you want to go, and just start there, And usually that's about a 6-month process of being able to spend a little bit of time every week digging into all of those things. And over the course of a 6-month period of time, I'm watching people's businesses completely transform. I'm watching business owners go from so stressed out they don't know what to do with themselves to the shoulders dropping a bit. And this is just even in the first month or two of working with certain clients, just watching a complete transformation in people's outlook, their mentality, the way that they think about their business, the way that they think about what's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
think mindset shifting is like the biggest part of that, because a lot of the times, they're operating with so many limiting beliefs that it doesn't matter what they do on their daily, they have that in the back of their mind. So it's extremely hard to go ahead and achieve something that you want when you have just instilled in you that it is not possible. You'll never get there. Something's gonna break, and you're gonna have to restart, or like all these different things that don't serve us. And I feel like a lot, vast majority of new entrepreneurs and small business owners have that in the back of their head. And I think like something that you do really, really well is just giving them the clarity, so then they can themselves see it and believe it and get rid of a lot of those limiting beliefs and saying like, no, this is something that we can do, as opposed to having to deal with all the chaos and all the uncertainty that might have given them those beliefs to begin with, So one of the things that I didn't want to pick your brain on about a little bit is because the fact that you worked, for Indeed, and you worked with a lot of, business owners looking to recruit. I've heard that a lot myself. It's so hard to find the right person. If you're an expert on any field or a successful entrepreneur who wants to be featured in our podcast,
I loved it.
Make sure you click the link below, fill out the application, tell us a little bit about yourself. If we're a good fit, somebody from our team will reach out to you.
What's up? What's up? Hey, what's up? What's up?
And you need to get ready to start inspiring our audience and become a part of the AbadAss Life podcast. I'll see you soon. I think one of the toughest things in business, or for business owners, And a lot of times, whenever they do find the right person and then not sticking around, like, you find the right person, you're going to pour your time, resources, and all into that person. And then once they leave, business owners feel betrayed. They feel, demoralized. It's like, oh my God, like I just spent 3 years, 5 years with this person, they just left. And what is your take on that? It's like, how do you, as a business owner, how do you prevent that from happening? And I know that obviously creating the right culture and making sure that they're taken care of is obviously the go-to answers. But is there anything else that goes deeper beyond that you think that you've seen work? To retain that type of talent?
I think the first answer is you're dealing with human beings, right? So there's always going to be stuff. It's always going to be hard. There is no silver bullet. If there was a silver bullet, that's all I would sell, right? If there was a real answer to that problem, I don't think there would be so many different options for recruiting, for staffing agencies, for all those things. I think one of the main things that I have noticed is that everybody knows what skills they are looking for, but nobody is willing to define what kind of person they're looking for. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like I'm not hiring for personality. Yeah, but at the same time, you're gonna have to spend every day with this person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You're gonna talk to this person every day. They're gonna be the ones that you let on the inside of your issues and that work on those things. And everybody just wants an answer. But what they're looking for is not an answer. They're looking for a person. They're looking for a human being. Like it goes back to the idea of what you said before. It's like everyone is the hero in their own story, right? It's one of the frameworks that Donald Miller teaches and that I love in terms of sales and marketing is the idea of, we need to recognize that every single human being alive today is the main character in their own story. Right? Now, which story you want to be on the inside of and you want to assist them with, that's on you to develop your niche, right? As Don would say, own your problem. Figure out what problem you solve and own it, right? And be the go-to person to solve that problem. But one of the things that I love to coach my clients through is defining your key characteristics. Defining what kind of person you are looking for, what they need to be committed to, what needs to be important to them. There's multiple reasons for why I think that's so important. One of the primary being, once the wrong person hears, you can make X number of dollars and you'll have medical benefits if you can just do this job. The wrong person will go, I want medical benefits. I want those, I want that income and I can do that job, because they have the skills for that. But if you're sitting with the wrong person, and you start to define the key characteristics of what you're looking for in a person, right? And they have to genuinely, if I own a veterinary clinic, you have to love pets. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
If whatever, I could come up with a million different examples, but I think that veterinary one is simple enough to define that concept. The wrong person gets the opportunity to go, that's not me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's true.
What most people are doing in their interview process is they're just trying to determine, can you do the job? Will you take the job? Like, would you be willing to take the job? Because they're trying to pay as little as possible to get as much as they can out of people. And that's not evil. That's just a profit and loss statement. You know what I mean? Like you want to get more productivity out of a person than it costs you to have them. That's just how you run a profitable business, right? So the idea is make yourself as valuable as humanly possible so that you can then command more. But it's a side note. I'm being tangential again. But the idea of most people just go, I don't have time for that. I just need to hire somebody. Again.
Oh, then you have to rehire somebody.
Exactly.
3, 5, 6 months down the road.
You're going to have to spend another $1,000. You're going to have to put out more ads. You're going to have to waste more time talking on the phone with a person at ZipRecruiter or Indeed or whatever, or your staffing agency. And you're going to spend more and more and more time going through the process, more and more and more money going through the process of trying to find the right person. How about you define what the right person is?
Yeah.
You define who you're looking for, what needs to be important to them. What kind of mindset they're going to need to bring into the job, right? Mm-hmm. And this isn't just a personality test. This is being willing to sit down and look at your company and go, who needs to be here, right? Who needs to be on the plane? And what kind of attitude, what kind of thought process do we want to sit with and deal with every day? Because you'll find that if you don't do that, then like I said before, the wrong person can say, yeah, I'll take the job. And then you'll waste time. But if you really do take the time to define those things, the wrong person gets a chance to weed themselves out.
Yes.
They get a chance to go, that's not me. So therefore, have a good day. Now you can part as friends, dude. Now you don't have to be like, oh, all these people are just wasting my time. They're not. You're genuinely going through a process. If you're hiring, you're genuinely going through a process of trying to find the people who are going to help you get your business from where it is to where you want it to be. That should be the right person. That should be a person you enjoy. That should be a person you want to spend time with every day. And people go, I don't have the luxury or the convenience of, making that the focus. Okay, well then good luck hiring and rehiring.
Especially when, you're hiring for like critical positions. Like every position matters, but when we're talking about leadership, like when we're talking about like, your executive suite, when we're it's for bigger businesses, or for, your implementator, your CEO, whatever that key position is going to be, I feel like, one thing that we're starting doing and it's worked like a lot better for me was I want to ask them, what do they want? And this might sound cliche, but it's like, if based on what they say, I see that this is not going to take them there, then even if they're a great fit skill-wise, this is not going to work, right? And so, like, I was browsing through, some of the people I follow, and I ran into this right at the time where I was, like, trying to figure it out. It's like, okay, how's our hiring process going to be? And because of the fact that we're trying to attract top talent, right? Like we want like A players, and normally A players are ambitious. They have their own goals. They have their own dreams. Like you said, we're dealing with people here. Like things change. How do you retain them? And I was just going, reading, watching, listening to everything like related to this topic. And this is the one thing that like resonated with me the most and that I like really like the most. And this Dan Martell says this and says, like, first of all, it's very, it's hard to ask somebody to care about your business as much as you do. They don't have to skin in the game.
No doubt.
You hear a lot of business owners talking about like, oh, they don't, they don't care about it. Of course, they might not. If they don't align themselves with the vision, they don't buy into the vision, and it's not their business, like, why should they?
That's it.
But the key nugget for me was when said, your vision has to be big enough to be able to house their vision and their dreams and their goals. Because if they don't, this is a temporary thing for them, right? But if they're able to align themselves with your vision and your dreams are ambitious enough, big enough, where can house all of the things that they want, that's how they stay with you forever.
The people who build the greatest cultures are the people who let their team in on not just the vision, but every aspect of what's going on. I'm not saying you need to share your financials with everybody in your business, but what I am saying is like, man, I've seen some incredible cultures of these small companies or, people who are fighting to break through that $10 million mark, that $5 million mark, even the $1 million mark. And I've seen some really toxic cultures and I've seen such positive cultures. And the answer comes in that, again, going back to ignorance on fire being better than knowledge on ice, is the idea of even when the vision isn't perfect or super clear or optimized, right? Whatever phrase you want to use there, you let your people in on it and you let them know where you're going. You let them know what the goal is. You let them know what part they play in that. You let them know you appreciate them. Holy wow. Like the idea that in 2025, we have to tell people you'll get a lot better performance and retention out of your people if you're nice. If you're just good to your people and they don't hate working for you. And they go, well, that's, then it goes back to the Karate Kid example. It goes back to the idea of like, well, what's better? Is it Miyagi or Cobra Kai? Like, what's better? Is it like understanding and being in one with one's emotions and feelings? Or is it like, get back to work? Like what actually gets the better result? Because the short-term, benefit of yelling, get back to work is immediate productivity. But the long-term result of that is resentment, frustration, right? And a general desire to quietly quit, to say, maybe I'll be here as long as I need to, but I'm also putting in job applications while I'm here, and it's not to say that there aren't certain people that respond really well to being, micromanaged and to being insulted or to being, called out in front of people. There's certain people, you call them out in front of other people and their whole identity locks in and they become really powerful movers, right? And they go, I'll show you. Yeah. There's certain people that will really, really operate well out of that. There's other people that if you call them out in front of people and embarrass them, they go home and kill themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we don't have the convenience of being so busy that we don't take the time to understand our people. You have a responsibility. You're a business owner. You're in management. You have a responsibility to your people. What are you saying? I need to become some master of psychology and human dynamics? I mean, yeah.
A little bit.
A little. I'm not saying not at all. I'm not saying entirely that needs to become your whole identity and you need to, ride with the waves of your people's emotions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you need to understand human dynamics. You need to understand how people tick.
Yes.
You need to get to know people.
Behavior.
Yes.
You need to understand the root cause of that behavior.
Yes. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to play this game where they go, I didn't sign up for that. I just started a business. Well, that's what you signed up for
you did.
when you started a business. You know what I mean? That's the unintended consequence of owning a business is now you have people. Now you are responsible for people's lives, for their children, for their family. And you go, well, I'm a business owner. That's not all that. Yeah, it is. It really is. And the beauty is some of the most powerful business owners that I've ever met who build beautiful cultures are the ones who know their people's names, who understand how they tick, who understand their kids' stories and what's going on in their life. And it's like, well, who has time for that? The person who wants to build a strong business.
You take care of the people and they'll build the business.
Come on.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. And everybody wants to go, well, I have a done-for-you system to be able to create a great culture. How about care?
Yeah.
How about care?
There are certain things that there's just no shortcuts,
Oh, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah, there's there's no, okay, I'm gonna automate this. I love automation.
Sure.
I think you should look to automate all of your repetitive tasks, all of the things that are gonna make you more efficient, all of the things you should be spending time on. I could get pretty nerdy when it comes to that stuff.
Sure.
Because I love it. Because for me, and for a lot of business owners out there, time is your most valuable resource. That's the one thing you don't get back.
Right.
And so optimizing for how do I spend less time doing a lot of those things that don't matter should be number one priority. But there's a lot of things that they do matter. There's a lot of things that you can't just automate. There's a lot of things that you can't utilize AI to help you with. And those are the things that a lot of people out there may not believe it, but those are the things that bring it home. Those are the things that, help. I do teams I do meetings with my team twice a week. And then every month, this is something that I cannot take credit for because Heidi started. She started doing one-on-ones with our entire team bi-weekly, I believe. And so, we have a large team.
Sure.
It's tough to get in the time and all the stuff. And just the reaction when I took the time to not cancel what she's doing with it, but also stack on top of that and say hey, I'm meeting with you guys. It's I think productivity went up just by me doing an extra session with them and, saying hey, how you doing? How's everything going on?
Yeah.
What do you need? Do you have the resources that you need? Do you have the support that you need? Is everything else that I can do that can help you, just sharpen the sword, become the A player that you are or more. Just something as simple as that helped so much. And ever since, are now like doing it more and more. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think, like we said, there's a lot of things that there's definitely no shortcuts for it. There's some things you just, almost everything in life that's worth achieving, like, you have to break a sweat to get it. And there's just no other way.
Yeah. I wish there was. I wish there was a magic pill that you could take that would make every single person take. Well, I mean, when they came out with a pill that, everyone started to believe, oh, you take it, you lose weight, right? And that's the thing. Well, there's side effects. There's issues with that, and I get it, right? Not everything interacts with everybody the same way, but it's amazing to me. Some people, when they buy into these easy solutions, and then they find that there's a consequence, and it's like, well, what the heck? Why were you surprised by that? Like, I don't understand.
There's a fun fact about me. I have an irrational fear of pills and things from that age. And I don't know why, because you don't normally think like, oh, that could be the byproduct of, maybe being at home with like the mom or dad abused pills and things like that. None of that ever happened.
None of that happened in your life.
My mom was like very into, alternative medicine and things of that nature. So she didn't like herself, like a lot of the pills and stuff like that. But it wasn't to the extent where like it would make me feel this way. Like I have to be dying to take a Tylenol or something like that. And the same thing when it comes to weight loss. Like I think like my journey has been like pretty imbalanced in certain seasons of my life that I've let go of my health. I've gained a ton of weight. I like indulge a little too much in being a foodie, and I blame part of this on Jen because she's such an amazing cook and she spoils me. Like she ruins it for me. I can't go anywhere now.
I have the same problem with my wife. She'll say to me at some point, she'll be like, what should I cook for dinner? I have nothing in the house. And I'm just like, do you want me to pick something up? Whatever. And then I'll come home and I'll realize, oh man, I didn't go to the store. I didn't wind up picking up anything. And then I open the door and I smell something amazing. And I'm like, what happened in here? And she's like, oh, I don't know. I just threw something together. It smells divine in here, And she's like, oh, well, I had some olive oil and I found some pine nuts in the thing, and I made pesto. I'm like, what? Who just makes pesto? Like, what the heck? And basil, And she just all of a sudden from nothing comes something, and I feel like that's kind of the beauty of it. Is like, I don't know why we're off on this tangent now, but like that is so funny to me, is like the idea of developing your people, caring about your people enough, right? Whether it's from a business standpoint, like you just described, and why your people now feel better about being with you, or in your relationship, in your marriage, is like bringing the best out of people requires an investment. Mm-hmm. It requires, over the course of however long, I'm not saying I, made some magical investment into my wife, not that kind of bride, but just kidding. Mm-hmm. But like this idea of, there were a lot of investments made into her and her life by her parents, by me, by, whatever, that said, you can cook, you know what I mean? And go for it,
right,
and figure it out. And when you don't have something, just figure something out. And now all of a sudden she believes she can. And she just goes, she looks at a pantry and just, I don't know, she finds something cool, and all of a sudden magic comes out of it. And it's amazing. And I feel like that's so much, like, it's just so important in today's world. It's just figuring out how to pull that best out of people. And it's an investment. It takes time. Like, going back to, I don't know what's putting my brain on this now, but talking about just kind of my philosophy on sales and how my brain works when it comes to sales is, I think that the way that the vast majority of people think about sales is the reason that they hate it. That's going to sound like a very obvious statement, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the mindset, the way that their minds are set and focused and thinking about the concept of sales, it leaves most with no other option than to hate it, right? So the idea of what I've seen so many times coming into a sales conversation or a sales pit or a room full of other salespeople or whatever, is I watch and listen to people on the phones put themselves on the other side of the table from their client, and it becomes this adversarial thing, Mm-hmm. And I think that stems from one of two mindsets. It stems from either the salesperson, you are the hero in the story, I'll save you, I'll solve your problem, which leaves the client or the prospect with only one role to take in that story, which is the damsel in distress, which is the person who just so desperately needs the help of the hero. But there's so many different flaws with that, aside from the fact that it's very disempowering.
Yes.
To the client, to the prospect, and usually that creates a power dynamic that you don't really want to have to fight your way out of. The other option most of the time is if the client or the prospect is the hero in that story, then what does that make the salesperson as the villain? And they put themselves opposite side of the table. Now,
should be the sidekick.
Right. Now exactly trying to, well, you wish the sidekick, but I feel like most salespeople place themselves in that position of the villain. Not intentionally. Mm-hmm. They don't think that they're being villainous, but to the client, that's how they look. Mm-hmm. They look like the opposition. If you've ever bought a car, you know what that feels like, right? You walk into that car dealership going, I'm going to beat this guy. I'm going to destroy his commission, and that's your goal, is because if you're the hero in your story, then the salesperson becomes the villain. And I think there's a really healthy way to look at that again, Donald Miller's laid out in How to Grow Your Small Business, is that, and I highly recommend that book to everybody, not just business owners. But I think it will help the average person to bring more value to whatever role they're in. But if you look at it differently, if you look at it where, like we said before, every human being is the main character in their own story. But if you're going to open an interesting story, what you need is a hero who has a problem, right? Mm-hmm. So how do I position myself in a way that's different from the average salesperson? Like I said before, most people position themselves on the other side of the table. They don't take the time to build rapport and connect. They want to sell what they have, right? While everybody else is doing that, I'm picking up my chair and moving it to the client's side of the table, so that now it's not him or her versus me, it's us versus the problem. Mm-hmm. So how that positions me differently is that if they're the hero in the story, then I'm the guide, right? To go back to Karate Kid, it's, they're Daniel and I'm Miyagi. You know what I mean? It's the opportunity to be able to go, what are you trying to accomplish and how can I help you get it, right? Help someone feel confident that you can help them solve their problem. But then to be able to actually be on the same team, especially because what I find is that one of the most effective ways to be able to generate more clients is to give away business. It's a very, very weird sentence to say until you realize that what you do by, referring away business and passing off business that is not perfect for you is that you build tremendous trust with that person. They came to you for a solution and you're willing to admit, hey, I'm not the best solution for you, but I know who is. Go talk to this person. The first thing you did is you built tremendous trust with that person. And whenever they need what you have, they're not going to anyone else. That's number one. Number two is now hopefully you're sending them to somebody that you have a good relationship with. And now that person is all the more incentivized to point business back in your direction. So you've created two advocates for your business. You've created multiple people now who neither of them have actually given you money, nor have you had to pay them money, but now they have become an advocate for you.
Right.
They have become somebody who is an ambassador for your brand. Then when people say, I need XYZ, and that person hears it, they're going to go, oh, call Andres, call Nick, It is so powerful, right? And everyone just wants to know, how do I close the deal? How do I close the deal? And it's just like, you're the villain. You know what I mean? You're the one who's just trying to get a quick buck out of your people, out of your clients. It's like an epidemic of salespeople in this world who will close a deal and then disappear. Yeah. They'll close a deal and then the person goes, well, I was dealing with Nick. What I want to talk to Nick, and everyone's like, nah, Nick's gone. Nick's on to the next sale.
There is so much lack of trust, and like you said, nowadays, and this is all thanks to the last decade, maybe a little bit longer. But everyone's trying to sell you something. The moment that happens, that we see that and we hear that from a lot of our clients in the agency world. It's you come in, you talk to some of the main guys, and then as soon as they close you, then they hand you down to a junior assistant or an intern or somebody a BA or somebody that's not as qualified, or maybe they're great, but they're just at the beginning of their journey, and you're might not have the same results. And yeah, I have to deal with that a lot because, like unfortunately, agencies have, tainted the way that business should be done by doing these over and over again, and because of the fact that there is a lot of them popping up, and then so for example myself, like I don't have a background in marketing. I didn't go to an Ivy League school to 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 pursue a career in marketing. I did a lot of sales back in my 20s. Had a couple different businesses, so I consider myself a scrappy entrepreneur. I learned what worked and what didn't work for a handful of industries, and then built my own in-house marketing team. I was able to, because of all the hard work that my team put in, and timing was great. I mean, like a lot of this concept of like the self-made, I don't think nobody's self. There's always, you know, some type of assistance that you got from your friends, family, or even the goodwill of strangers that has helped you get to where you are.
Yep.
And so thanks to, a lot of those elements combining together, like I was able to bring my business to, multiple eight figures. And a lot of people hear that, I was like, oh my God, that is revenue. Some of those are like vanity metrics. At the end of the day, your margins and your bottom line is what really matters. But there's the proof of concept that is like, hey, by leveraging some of these strategies, some of these concepts, you can grow. And if you're a business that operates at like a large margin, maybe you don't reach the multiple figures, 9 figures, whatever, but you don't need to. Depending what your goal is, you can optimize that by solving other aspects of the business and being more profitable, adding to your bottom line. A lot of the times we can add to business bottom lines without even getting them more clients.
Sure. Absolutely. It's part of why I named my company New Light Consultants, because I realized that one of my main purposes was going to be to connect people to the right resources, even if it's not me. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to ask you an interesting question, because I think I'd be very curious to hear your opinion on this concept, and I'm not gonna try and steer your answer in the way I ask it. So forgive me a moment while I just try to kind of like iron out how I'm going to ask you the question. Would you rather own a $10 million company at a 20% profit margin, or a $100 million company at a 2% profit margin? Knowing that the number specifically that you make is going to be exactly the same, right? Because your margin is exactly the same.
100 million.
Okay. Why?
Because one of my goals is to get to 100 employees, right? So that would fulfill. And it's not necessarily because of revenue-wise. It's because I want to impact more lives. I want 100 people or more to go to a place that they're happy to go to, that their families have the life they want because they're part of this organization. I think it's more sustainable. I think it goes in line with what my ambition and my thought process goes to when I think of my personal goals and the things that I want to achieve. And so I would say that $100 million organization has a bigger reach and a bigger impact if steered properly than what a 10 million would. Not to say that, one or I don't think there's no right answer.
It's why I asked the question, because there isn't a right answer.
But I think because of what I want to do, I think I'm okay with taking on the more problems, the more challenges, the things that I have to fight and have to slay those monsters to get to that. Because these two completely different things, right? Once you get to, once you get past like 20, 25 million, you start unlocking a lot of this like holy shit problems that you didn't even know existed. And I got very spoiled with my first business.
How so?
Well, not my very, very first business, but the first business that basically I went past that revenue-wise. And
Sure.
I think that didn't allow me to build the calluses that you need and build the experience that you need to have that type of business and continue scaling it, right? So because it happened so quick, timing was extremely helpful. It was something that it almost feels like I didn't fight enough for it. Like it happened. There's a lot of things that I believe myself and Jen was part of this. Like my team we did very good. We put in a ton of hard work. Timing was great, but I feel like it should have been harder. And it is not to discredit anybody like myself or my team. I just feel like I want to go through that process again in a way that it feels like, okay, we didn't have like timing on our, COVID was a real thing. Like
I see what you're saying.
It hurt a lot of businesses and it helped a lot of businesses. And so like
greatest transfer of wealth in the history of humanity.
Correct. So it's like, okay, what is that going to look like now doing it again without that, kickstart per se. But yeah, that's kind of like, I would 1000% pick the $100 million company, despite like all the extra headaches, all the extra problems, all the things you'll have to battle because of like the bigger reach and bigger impact. I'd say.
It's one of the questions I like to ask new clients is because it tells me who they are and what kind of life they want. And I can't, right? Think about my practice as an airplane, right? I can't help you get to where you want to go if you don't define it, if you don't make it clear to me what's important to you, right? Because if someone says to me like what you just said, then I'm going to go, oh, okay, they're going for scaling, impact, the number of lives that they can touch, not just through their employees, but through their clients, right? So that's going to be something that I speak to. It's going to be something that is important to them. Then if they say, 20% profit on a $10 million company because way less headaches, but same amount of money.
Yeah.
Right. I go, okay, now I know what's important to them. You know what I mean? Is their day to day, is their free time, is their, their schedule, right? Is their mental sanity, they don't thrive in chaos. They thrive in peace. You know what I mean? Like it's the difference between Miyagi and Cobra Kai. It's the difference between the two, it's just helping to identify who are you, where are you now, and where are you going? I could build my whole business consulting practice on those three questions.
Yeah.
Who are you? Where are you now? And where are you going? Just those three questions, you can build somebody, feel free to just take that and systematize it. You know what I mean? It's like and that's generally what life coaching is. It's generally what business coaching is in many cases. But so few do it. So few do it. So few ever take the time to get to know themselves. Well, I know who I am. Do you? Do you know why you get frustrated at the things that you get frustrated about? Or do you just get frustrated and then live as a passive bystander to your emotions?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, have you actually identified what your strengths are? What brings the most value to people? Have you talked to other people about that? Not just taken from your own opinion, what you think is the most valuable thing, but to actually listen to someone. Who's a great person to listen to on that? Your spouse. Your spouse can usually look you dead in the face and tell you exactly what's wrong. If you have the courage to listen, if you have the willingness to say, it is not an easy conversation at all. Anytime you're going to have any kind of conversation that calls you higher, iron sharpening iron means pain, right? It means shaving off and pruning and, all that kind of stuff. But if you have the courage to look someone dead in the face and say, what am I missing? What's my blind spot? That takes such guts and then sit and shut up. Most people can't do it.
Yeah.
Because
it's extremely hard.
And it's part of the reason that most people try to avoid ever being critical of others. Now, I mean, there's great validity in the concept of never criticize, condemn, or complain, right? Dale Carnegie, right? We could talk about that kind of stuff and great books all day. But if you want to improve, that takes critical thought. That takes looking at what's happening and analyzing, and that is really, really hard. And it's why a lot of people don't do it, is because it's very uncomfortable. It's really, really uncomfortable to take a look in the mirror and go, am I the problem?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how most of our society is designed around avoiding ever having to face that question. Am I the problem? And I think that amount of self-awareness and that willingness to work on oneself is what leads to better businesses, better marriages, better everything, because you have to be willing to take responsibility for yourself,
1000%.
your own actions. And that took me a long time to get to. And I carried a lot of resentment, bitterness, unforgiveness, frustration, self-hatred, self-doubt, and eventually got to a point where I reached, and I'm still working on and reaching, radical self-acceptance. Like just getting to a point of understanding who I am, whose I am. Again, that's a different podcast that we could talk about one day. But this idea of, okay, now what? Okay, that happened. I processed that. I felt through that. I allowed myself to be upset for a time about that. I allowed that process. Because if you don't register and process your emotions, you get to keep them. Yeah. They live in there. They live in your cells, and it creates all kinds of autoimmune disorders and all kinds of issues mentally, physically. True. In every area of of your life. So getting to a point where you allow yourself to feel, you allow yourself to validate your experiences, but also then on the other side of it, call yourself higher and go, okay, now what are we going to do about that? To me, that's the healthiest way to lead to a place of self-improvement, of, any of those kind of things. But the only reason that I feel that way is because that's been my journey.
You've gone through it. Yeah.
So there might be somebody who goes, I'm a Cobra Kai, just yell at me, just tell me, spit on me, tell me I'm scum. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of people that maybe that's driving them forward, maybe in the moment, maybe short term, but at the end of the day, I think just offering human beings, offering people the dignity to say, you're the main character in your own story. If I can help, I will. And if I can't, I'll be happy to connect you with someone who can. To me, that's building a badass life. Like that's building the kind of, the kind of legacy that I want to leave, have you ever read the book, The Go-Giver?
I never finished it. I started it.
How do you not finish
I
that
don't
book?
know. I don't know. Yeah, it's one of I think, I have no idea. I have no excuse.
I love The Go-Giver. Every time I go to read it, I look up 36 hours later, in amongst living my life and whatever, and I just have finished the book again because it's not even like 130 pages, 140 pages, but it's just such a powerful story about the idea of how you can actually define your value and the value that you bring, and develop a life that revolves around giving. You know what I mean? There's so much more in giving than there is receiving. Okay, that's a totally different podcast and a totally different conversation. But this idea of designing your life in a way that you can just feel damn good about. You don't have to question. You don't have to, you don't have to.
That in a nutshell is what that is all about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't have to be what anybody else thinks like the concept of living a badass life has to look like, right? For most people, it's until they find the true reasons of why they do things in their purpose, you get confused with all the noise and all the things that you should do, you're supposed to do, and you should accomplish based on whatever your friends, family, and society tells you.
Yep.
But that what you just said right there, it's in a nutshell what I want to convey to people, and it's it doesn't have to be what anyone else tells you. It just has to be that one thing that you want to leave behind, that one thing that it makes you tick, the purpose that you're fulfilling, that it's okay. Sometimes it may change,
Yeah, and that's the main encouragement from my side of it, is to tell people, whether they own a business or whether they're just having a conversation at church, is to get to that point of that takes time. It takes time to figure out what makes you tick. It takes time. And people go, I didn't find my purpose till I was in my 60s. I didn't find it's happened so often, right? Some people find their purpose when they're 16. Okay, that's amazing. That's so cool. I want to be that voice. I want to be that voice in somebody's life that encourages them. One of my favorite minds to learn from was a guy named Rich DeVos. And he was asked, he had, built this huge business, and he was asked, what do you do? Or, how do you define what you do? And he said, I'm a cheerleader of people. And they said, yeah, but like, what do you do? Like, how did you create all this success? And he goes, I'm a cheerleader of people. That's who I am. I'm the person who is going to walk past the parking garage attendant, and I'm just going to be a cheerleader for that person. And I'm going to let them know, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to build a life and a legacy around being the person who can encourage people everywhere I go. I'm a cheerleader of people.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's, and I don't do it perfectly every day, but I'm convinced that one day I'm going to write a book. And I won't say the title of it for fear that someone's just going to hear this and then steal it and make me buy the website from them, right? Like they'll just buy the URL. But I just love the idea of being able to be almost like a ninja in people's lives, like being the one who gets to walk past somebody in the grocery store and go, I love that shirt. And they get to go, thanks, and then you just bye. Have a good day, and just walk away and get to be the person who watches a person go through a really tough situation. My favorite is like restaurants, when there's a customer who's just really rude, but the waitress or waiter handles it really well. Like in that moment where they just keep their cool and they do whatever. And then just quietly to be like, I'm giving my order, and then to go, hey, by the way you handled that was impressive. Yeah. And immediately you watch people's whole worlds ignite. And there's something in them that goes, someone sees me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like somebody, I was getting up from a table at a diner yesterday, and I was getting the tires done on my car, and I was sitting at a diner just doing some work. I was like, just, you know what I mean? Just sitting down for 2 hours, just getting on the Wi-Fi and just doing some work. And next to me, I hear this conversation between a father and his son. And the son is my age, if not a little bit older. And I'm just hearing them have this conversation, and it's just a father-son kind of conversation where they're shooting the breeze, but they're also getting real with one another. And it encouraged me. It made me want to call my dad, right? But more importantly was when I got up from the table and I paid my check and I walked over to them, I said, excuse me, I said, are you guys father and son? And they both went, yeah, almost like, why? Like, what did we do, And I looked at them and I said, I can't tell you how encouraged I am by the fact that a father and son set aside the time to get together, to sit, have a meal, talk, be real with one another. Forgive me for eavesdropping on your conversation at all, but it was so encouraging to me just hearing this. The way the two of they grew by 3 feet, you know what I mean, in height that day. It's like the Grinch. His heart grew 3 sizes that day. It's like that moment of, oh my gosh, we do this every Monday.
Yeah.
Like we get together because we just want to do that. And it's like, yeah, but it matters. It matters. Not only does it matter to you two and to your relationship, which I encouraged them in, but also people see you, and it means something, And that's who I want to be. That's the life I want to live. That's the legacy I want to leave behind. And I praise God for the opportunities that have led me to this place. Even the ones that I thought were hurting me have created great strengths in my life. You know what I mean?
Have to go through those. Those
Yeah.
are the ones that shape us and
100%.
get us to where we need to go.
100%.
Man, I think it's been such a good conversation. You're officially the longest AbadAss Life podcast so far.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, I know, of course. This is one of the things where, like, we can probably stay here and continue talking on and on and on for hours. And we might have to make a series out of this, because there's just like so many things to talk about. And there was like so many rabbit holes that I wanted to go. And I was like, I'm going to have to hone in a little bit more. Maybe we'll do another one on this. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. You coming in and spending all this time with us, giving us a bunch of, those golden BBs, right? You said there's no silver bullet, but you've definitely give us a bunch of like golden nuggets for all of you guys out there. If you're starting a business, if you want to just, improve in general, I think there's a lot of things that Unique said that could be taken to just help so many people in so many different areas. And I think you're doing just right the thing that you need to do to continue building that legacy that you just spoke. I mean, again, like, we don't know each other for very, very long, but everything that you've said matches your actions and matches the things that you continue to do to do, at least, from everything that I know about you. And so like that's very important, right? Like anybody can come here, sit and, talk really nice in a podcast. Like the thing is, it's like, do you mean what you say? And, do you do as you say? Right? And, not everybody does it. So it's me. Like I'm so grateful and I'm super thankful that I got to meet you. That I got to meet, the group of people that we share, and the, some parts of that network. We, are working with some of the same clients. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what their journey is going to look like now.
Oh yeah.
Even for us together, because we're going to have like that proximity to help them and to continue drive them forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like thank you so much for taking the time. One quick thing is, I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'm pretty sure, yeah, you probably know right off the top of your head. So I normally, before we go towards the end and wrapping things up, I like to ask every guest that comes in here, what is like one of their favorite quotes and why? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. Well,
I don't need it.
No, okay.
I know.
I knew it. I just knew it. How did I know? But before or right after that, if you like, I would like you to tell the audience, like, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they find you? Where can they go? Like, how can they get a hold of you if they have any questions? If they just want to connect with you, all that good stuff,
Sure.
and all that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. Easy way is newlightconsultants.com. That is our website. You're welcome to email me at nick@newlightconsultants.com. And that's a direct line to me. My favorite quote, if I may dive right into that, my favorite quote, aside from the many Bible verses, right, that now, thank God, live rent-free in my head and in my heart. My favorite quote is probably from a Switchfoot song, because Switchfoot is my favorite band. And the lyric is, "The wound is where the light shines through." And I love that concept that your brokenness is like, if you imagine a clay pot, right? I heard Joyce Meyer make a great example of this one time, where she took two clay pots, and one was perfectly intact and the other one had been broken and glued back together. And she took a bright light and put it in both, and no light shined out of the one that was completely intact, but the one that had been broken and put back together was shining light in every direction, right? And the beauty of that quote for me is coming to realize at this point in my life that there are so many pieces of my journey that I wanted to hide. There are so many things that I didn't want to feel, that I didn't want to face and deal with. And when I finally sat and looked at them, worked through them, felt through them, processed them, forgave who I need to forgave myself, seriously. At that point, now everybody around me starts looking and going, I haven't known you for long, but I feel like I've just, got, and it's like, that's why, is because I'm a broken mess who is so grateful for the opportunity to take the time to put myself back together. Not put myself back together, because I didn't do it. It's not like some magical thing of like, I just willpower. It's a God thing. It is a taking the time to get to know what, where you come from, what's most important, who you are, who God says you are. But then being willing to share that with people, right? Yeah. Being willing to stand up in front of a room of business owners and leaders and telling my story about wanting to end my life, and being willing to work, to talk through that and expose that to people. And by the end of it, people are crying and going, thank you so much for sharing that, because I have hurt like that and I didn't know what to do with it. And it's like, you're not alone. I love the idea that we can bring light as long as we're willing to be real with people. And I think that's the most important aspect of what we're trying to create here. And what I think you've done really well, just in, again, the time that I've known you, you're one of those people that has so encouraged me and, looked at me in a way that says, oh yeah, you have tremendous value, right? And again, most people don't call that out in others, but you do, right? You and your people do. So that to me has been so encouraging to say, yeah, you're not just starting a business because you had a great idea and because it's going to make you a bunch of money. You're starting a business that has value, that people need, and that I'm going to be excited to partner with and work with and, connect with. And it's just like, all right, cool. Yeah, absolutely. We can bring our broken pieces together and we can shine a lot of light everywhere we go. I think that's kind of where we're headed.
Man, that's everything you said. It's so powerful, and it just hits like the right places. Because that's what we're trying to do here. Whether it's business, whether it's personal, it's just empowering the person, because they are the heroes in their own stories. They are the main characters, and we just want to be, whether in some cases we are the Miyagis of the scenario, or in some cases we might just be the sidekicks. Some people are further along in their journeys, and sometimes they don't need a full-on mentor, coach, or whatever you want to call it. They just need some support. They just need somebody to alleviate the weight that they put on their shoulders. So we're happy to be either or. But supporting the right people, helping them achieve their goals and dreams, so that those goals and dreams have an impact in their families, the people around them, and it all becomes like, goes full circle. And I think that's what I want to do. That's what we want to leave as our legacy, is just just living this world a little bit better than we found it. And as cliche as that sounds, is just the truth.
It doesn't sound cliche. It sounds like, I think, a good goal. My dad used to say to me all the time, leave every room better than you found it. I want to leave the world better than we found it.
So once again, man, I just want to say thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time. I'm sure there's a bunch of people out there that appreciate all the value, and there's a handful of out there that went, that's what I need to do, or that's where I've been lacking, and now they can potentially go ahead and try to implement some of those things to start moving forward in the journey, right? And so also congratulations on breaking the record of the AbadAss Life podcast so far. Hopefully next time we'll break it and we go even further.
I'd love that. Thanks so much, man.
Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are watching this, that means that you are trying to go ahead and start building your own badass life, whatever that looks like for you, right? Like, I don't have the answers. I bring people in here to communicate some of their stories, some of the tips that they've gotten out of their journey, some hacks that you can potentially use if you are in the same industry, or if you were in the same situation and need some wisdom, or just simply to listen the story that it's very similar to what you're going through. And so if you're already doing that, you are on the right path, right? You are on the right road. And I hope that we are able to take you further and further, and to able to assist to whatever that road looks like for you. So until then, I see you guys in the next episode, and continue living your own badass life.